That was
Hi,
a presentation.
do I have a video somewhere? I don't know if it is on or it's
Here
off.
it is.
I'm
Yeah, on, we can see.
No, the video is on. Your head is cut off a little bit, so maybe you need to adjust the video a bit.
It's so much better if there isn't one.
You cannot say that, Deepak.
How do I get to see how this video is looking like, you know?
Oh, but you should be. Do we need to do something, Sangram, for him to see?
I think, are we okay?
Yeah, we're okay. We're
Perfectly
okay.
fine. Perfectly fine. We'll just
Hi, Sangram. Hi, guys. I hope I didn't get late.
Not at all. You're 2 minutes early. We'll just wait for the guys to log in. We have a number of participants, but we just give a few minutes.
I'm Sangram Surve, MD and CEO of the Think Why Not Group, a couple of advertising companies. I'm also a filmmaker, and our first film cycle, I'm happy to say, was selected by the Maharashtra government to be sent to the Cannes Festival 2 years back. And hopefully, I think some of you might be able to see it on the OTT channel soon. With me is my friend and co-host, Alok Sinha, CEO, entrepreneur, author. He just released his latest book, Achieving Successful Outcomes, published by the global publisher Taylor and Francis. It's a very relevant book for the times today. And before we jump into the conversation, let's just tell you how the session henceforth is going to be laid out. First half an hour will be spent, Alok and me asking Deepak some questions. Suppose that when you filled in the registration forms, all of you have written some questions in it. So we will jump into some handpicked questions from those. And after that, we'll open it up to the audience to ask their questions to Deepak, right? And I'll now invite Alok, because Alok and Deepak and their association goes a long way. He'll formally introduce Deepak and kickstart the session. Over to you, Alok.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Deepak Bagla, CEO and MD of Invest India, to Guts, Glory and Story. As you know, Invest India is also synonymous with science and technology, with Startup India, Make in India. But today, at the very outset, and with a lot of pride, we will see how India has managed to become such a preferred FDI destination for the world. And although India is ranked at number 9 today, and we're bracing for the COVID impact, we will see how Invest India is strategizing to counter this. But importantly, more importantly actually, we will also see the steps taken by the government and Invest India for the Indian industry, especially for the entrepreneurs and for MSMEs, to blunt the negative impact of COVID. But first, we will delve into a crucibles moment in Deepak's life that led him to find his purpose. And that's the reason why he's here, to help transform India. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting our power speaker for today, speaking on the future of SMSEs, startups, and investments in India, and also my junior and high school batchmate and buddy, Deepak Bagla. Sangram, over to you for the first question. And welcome, Deepak, once again.
Thank you, Alok. Thank you, Sangram. Is that your book at the back? Achievement, Successful Business?
Deepak, you have that book. I did send you one. And you owe me a read.
I do. And really congratulations to that. And I was going to ask Sangram, if I just see your photo frame, is that your little pet at home at the back, which I see the picture?
Yes, yes. You're very observant. Yes, that's indeed. It's a pencil sketch of my pet, Oscar.
Oh.
He's impatiently waiting in the inside room because he doesn't like being locked up.
Come on.
We definitely want to have a lot of questions from him if I let him out. Leave that for another day.
Let's start.
So yeah. So Deepak, I want to start it off with that one moment, because from all the videos that we've seen of you, I think the most fascinating one was the moment that was a transformation moment in your life. Take us back to 2008 and tell us about 2611 and how that completely changed the decision for you.
You know, it's interesting you asked me about this. It's actually been years since the last time I spoke about it. I remember once it happened, then there were a lot of discussions, a lot of places I would go, they would ask me the story. And it's interesting because in all our lives, there will always be a time and a moment which changes your course. And it won't just be one, there'll be multiple of those. There's some which are a little more pronounced. And I must first clarify, it wasn't actually just a moment, Sangram. It lasted, and the thing was, why it got deeper into your DNA, because it lasted a long time. So let me just take you back to it. And I remember it was a Wednesday or a Thursday evening, and I was at the Oberoi in Delhi. 9 o'clock, I had a table booked at the Indian restaurant on the first floor. And the table which we had booked was, which is always, when you enter, the one right in front, it was facing the sea. And I had this friend of mine who was a senior advisor to the British government. He was 10 minutes late. So by the time we got in there, I'm sorry, I'll just take you to 5 minutes for this one, because
Please do that. Please do that.
one of the experiences which I'm reliving myself now after a bit. I got 10 minutes late. We reached there. That table had been given to somebody else. And we were given a table right on the left of that, extreme left, right next to the kitchen door. I remember we were just having our starters. We heard some patakas, so as to speak. And this Britisher asked me, what do you think it is? I said, don't worry about it. In India, there must be some wedding or some reception happening. And then about 7 or 8 minutes later, we had people walk into firing their guns. And you know what I told you about the table which was booked? That was the first table to go. I remember when I just entered, that table had been given to somebody else. And that was a friend who used to work for Yes Bank. He just raised his hand, waved to me and said, if you don't mind, we've taken your table. I've got a few guests. And I said, perfectly okay. That table went and it was first, and I still feel a sense of guilt in me. And I remember when this all started, and you could see them spraying bullets right across, I just got hold of my friend's hand who was sitting across the table. He was a few years older than me. I said, let's run. And we ran through the kitchen door. We ran through the first door. We came to the second one of the kitchen. We just and then there were steps going up and down. And at that time, we had no idea what we were going to do. And I said, Michael, let's just run up to my room. I was on the 12th floor. And we ran up the steps and we went to my room and locked it in. Luckily I was told later, this is all in postmortem, that if we'd gone down, there was somebody, one of them, who was coming up by those steps too. So I was told, but not them. The real thing started actually was that for the next 2.5 days, they were in the room next to mine. What they'd done is they'd got a few hostages. If you go through the story of what happened in the Oberoi, they came into this restaurant. Most of the people went away because they were caught in the fire. They picked up a few hostages, took them up to the top floor on the 18th floor, got rid of a few, and then came down to the 12th floor with about 3-4 of them. And they were in the room next to mine for the next 2.5 days. Wow. And what used to happen is every few hours, you would hear crying, shouting, and then a gunshot, and then complete silence. What it also was that on Wednesday night it started, till Thursday morning, till about 8:30, the TV was on. So we had some idea what was happening. First night, the TV said that it is something to do with the gang warfare. Around midnight, it changed to that it could be a terrorist attack. And we had no idea, we were just locked in. And I was concerned because Michael had just had a heart attack before that, and he was just sitting in his room with his suit and tie right across. So what I did when they changed it to this, I filled my tub with water. I created a small bunker in the room. I wet all the towels in case they were required. The AC exhaust which comes in. So I took a long towel, wet it, and then pinned it so I could block that. And then I created a mattress and put it against the door. I don't know why I was doing it. I just thought we might see whatever security we could get. By Thursday, what had happened in the afternoon, Thursday morning, we had the NSG move in. There was firing right through every 10-15 minutes. What they used to do, and I don't know who was doing it. So if you know the Oberoi in Delhi, there's an atrium in the middle and the rooms are around it. So every 10 odd minutes, somebody would throw a grenade into the atrium. It would just walk around and then you would hear bullets again firing all over. No sleep, nothing. And this continued. And on Thursday around 4 o'clock, after one of these shootings that happened again in the neighboring room, you had fire in the neighbor. What they had done is, because the NSG had moved in, this is what later when we pick up our stories, they had put the curtains on fire. So the smoke started bellowing into the room from the exhaust. And you know, I remember sitting Thursday evening, the sun was setting and I was watching there, and the only thing I wanted from God at that time was to be able to hold my boys, my family, and to be just with my parents. I didn't want anything else. And that was the time I was negotiating with him. I was telling him, just give me this. I don't want anything else in my life. And I remember, you know, SMSs were on, and all of you, Alok, from my school in Chandigarh to the school in Delhi, my college, my university, my friends. I mean, I had over 800 SMSs which kept going. That just stick with it. Somebody saying, you know, sending me a Hanuman Chalisa, read it. Somebody saying, we are with you. And I remember I called up on Thursday morning, I called my wife and I said, well, actually Saturday night, Wednesday night, Thursday early morning. And I said, I think it's a situation. Thursday, I said, I wanted to speak to the boys. She said, no, let it be. The boys' school had a prayer so that I could come back alive. When you suddenly feel you're so loved by people who don't even know you. And then, you know, I just want to cut that story short, but let you know, in the end, when we were coming out on a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock, I was one of the last to be brought out. I remember they knocked at my door, and I got a call before that saying that they'll come and knock, please open the door, because we were not going to open the door. And I had these 5 guys in their military overalls, face covered. And he said, Mr. Bagla, we're taking you down. So they did it. What they would do, they did this room by room. So if there was somebody on the 18th floor, they went up to the room, brought him all the way down to the ground floor, then ran up back again. And I remember asking that captain, I said, Captain, have you had anything to eat? So he looked at his watch and he said, sir, it's about 36 hours, but I've had a chocolate. And all what they were doing, they gave me a body cover. We ran down on the steps. I remember coming to that lobby, it was just glass crashed all over. But what really got me at that point of time, that there were 5 people who never knew me. They never will. Their faces were covered. I would never know them. They had risked their life to save mine. And you know, until then, if somebody ever asked me what was the happiest moment of your life, and I would always think about multiple, and you would give an answer. After that, it was the simplest. I remember I flew back into Delhi, and I had my 2 boys run up to the aircraft. Easily. You can't imagine. I mean, and then I came back home and my house was filled with friends and my wife and my parents. And I found this is all what life is about. Frankly, nothing else matters. This was one of those moments, actually the moment, which turned my life around. Thanks. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Don't have to be sorry at all.
My apologies, but that's how it was. And I decided maybe I should spend my life doing something else. And I was actually looking, maybe I would have joined an NGO or something, and there were some discussions on with some of them. And then this one came along that the government was looking to set up an investment promotion agency for India. And the interesting thing is that if you look at the top 20 recipients of foreign direct investment in the world, all of them have a very effective investment promotion agency, even though they are much simpler than ours, because they are smaller countries or more, you know, together. The complexity of doing business may not have been as high. And in India, where we have one of the highest complexities of doing business, we did not have an investment promotion agency. And this is where, when Prime Minister Modi came in, he said, I want to set up one. And that's when there was a connect, and they said, would you want to come and do this? And I thought, more than happy to do that. And that's a different story. We'll pick it up if you want at some point of time on how Invest India got born and what happened to it. But this is 2611, my friends. It changed many lives. And frankly, it did change mine completely. And it's so interesting because if you think about it, look at this small virus today. We are on a Saturday evening. People should be out having fun instead of hearing to one another talking head. Just sharing his very unremarkable existence in life and so many of you just sitting there watching it. But such is her life, and it takes you through many courses.
We certainly don't mind you extending that story into the birth of Invest India as well, because that was the extended question anyways.
So yes, we were brought in, this was I think 2015, yes, early 2015. And there was an old entity, so it was a cabinet note all the way in 2009, but it was lying dormant. And I liked the name Invest India, so I picked it up. To my mind, it has been the most overwhelming and satisfying experience of my life until now. It has been unbelievable. And I'll tell you what I tell you about why I say unbelievable. You know, I was given government salaries. I said, let's create this team. It was a blank slate. Everybody had warned me, you're getting into the government. Now, you know, just to put it a little in perspective, if I take a step back, an investment promotion agency is like a sales entity. You know, I have to sell India. I have to explain what India is about. While the government is more of a buy-side construct. In the government is the central point. The officer is the center focus point. While what this government was wanting to do, and I have to give full credit to Prime Minister Modi on that, that is the huge mindset he changed, or he's trying to change. That it's not the government which is the focal point, it is the people which is the focal point. That is why if you look at it until now, it was very difficult to set up a sales team within a government construct. And I'll give you an example. If I have a meeting with a customer, and if I get a call from the minister to meet him, I have to cancel the customer call and go and meet the minister because he takes precedence. Right? That is how a government works. However, in this government, what he is trying to enforce, that investor comes first. And frankly, it was the right timing when we started this entity and we had this kind of a support coming from the top, where we could make that investor as the center point of focus, that was one of the primary reasons, which is what I say, the mindset change, which is trying to be brought about and which he has to an extent helped. The second is, and this was the most overwhelming for me when I say that, I was trying to get a team going, creating a team, government salaries. It was going to be a 1 year or a 3 year contract, which were coming in. And it was very difficult. You know, I know it is on those very low salaries and no housing and nothing. It was very difficult for people to sustain themselves. I remember on the second day of my interview, and we'd got some third party hiring agency to help us get good people. I had a young kid whose appointment was 9:30. He asked for 11 o'clock. He came in at 11. I asked him, why did you change the time? So he came from a city nearby Delhi. His father, he is himself from an IIM from the Northeast, was working for one of the big four. Big Four, he had just joined a year and a half ago. His father was in the police, a constable, who in a lathi charge had got paralyzed. 2 sisters lived in a village. And when I was interviewing him, I asked him, I said, do you realize that I will not be able to give you this salary? And by the way, he was the bread earner for his entire family, which I told you, including his 2 younger sisters. I said, your salary will be less than half if you join me. He said, Mr. Bagla, I'll do it. I said, why do you want to do it? He said, I want to build the country. And I said, does your father know about it? He said, my father told me to go and do it. He had come in the morning in that bus. I stood up and saluted him. This is how this team has got created. I've got about 200. Each one is from premier institutions in India and overseas, the IITs, the IIMs, the Ivy Leagues. Each one of them, without an exception, has taken a 7 to 95% pay cut. They work 24/7. The average age of my team, and as I always say, if you take me out of it, is 30. The same as the average age of India. And within 3 years, let me show you what the new India can do. We started 2015. Within 36 months, it was unheard of, and it's a startup of the government within a government construct. Invest India was rated by UNCTAD as the world's #1 investment promotion agency. And my budget is less than 1/10 of my competitors. it is, for me, it was unbelievable the way they work. I probably am the only senior team member anywhere in the world who has to call his team every day and say, I want nobody to look at his phone or messages after 9 o'clock. Not that they listen to me. It is unimaginable. And let me tell you what this team is responsible. So I have 4 verticals. One is investment, promotion, and facilitation, where I'm the single point of contact for any investor, both domestic and globally. A lot of it was first globally to help them on everything, to show them the market opportunity, to get them all approvals, to get them land, a partner. Basically, if you look at it, it's a mix of an investment bank with a high-end consulting firm. So let's say a McKinsey and a JP Morgan together. The second part is that I'm the execution arm for Startup India. You remember the Prime Minister launched Startup India on January 16, 2016. We are the execution arm. By the way, let me tell you what this team has done. And not just this team, but this country has done. Within a period, January 16, 2016, Sangram, kitna time ho gaya? 55 months, 60 months?
60 months.
Between 50 months. In 50 months, India today is number 3 in the world in number of unicorns, number 2 in the world in number of startups, number 1 in the world on new startups adding every day ahead of Israel. The third vertical which I have is what is called Agni, AGNII, Accelerated Growth of New India Innovation, which is where this is a part of the Prime Minister's Science and Technology Initiative. It is under Professor Vijay Raghavan, who's the advisor to the Prime Minister. And what we do in this, we take innovations which are happening in India and fast track them onto commercialization. So what we just launched early this week is waste to wealth. So what we've done is we are picking up Sentinel sites across the country, seeing how we can convert that waste to wealth, create projects of excellence, and then we can show it across to the globe. And the last part is the project management group. You've heard of the National Infrastructure Pipeline, which was there by the finance minister, managing that and creating that menu and seeing that projects are created and projects are executed on a fast track. So these are the 4 verticals. But as I was saying, this generation of India, which is what our team is about, and I have to give full credit to the government to give that complete freedom to this team to be able to go out and perform their work and to give them all support. This is the big change which has already come into India.
So Deepak, this is the creation. This is how you create it. And we wanted to dwell upon a little bit on what is happening today. I mean, it's timing whatever is happening or whatever good work you've done, maybe a bit. So, you know, COVID has amplified that for India to grow, we need to do 2-3 things, right? De-risk all the businesses onshore, the MSME sector. And I think there are a lot of MSMEs who have joined today. There are a lot of startup CEOs who have joined today. They need help. States need to be more aligned. And I remember you and I, we were talking and you said the impetus needs to go to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And it's not only the smart cities, but also the smart villages that we need. So how is Invest India steering the country towards this goal? Critical questions, and I think that a lot of questions that we received were around this.
So look, let me just step back a quick one on this one. So I think we are day 156 or 157 of this lockdown. This virus has completely changed our lives. As I said, look at a Saturday evening and we are doing this stupid stuff instead of being out partying.
True.
Now, just step what happened on 30th of March this year. Let's say 3 days or 5 days after the lockdown. 30th March this year, I closed my FDI with $74 billion. Absolutely. The highest ever FDI I've got in my history. And I'll tell you some interesting points of it. This 74 billion is 18% higher than my last year, at a time when global FDI was going down by 7% during these past 12 months.
True.
The second part is that about 93% of the 74 billion came in the open route. That meant it did not require any specific approvals. I am one of the most open economies on the planet, private sector being able to play a role in each and every sector of my growth. The third, which is very interesting, close to 50% of the 74 billion is greenfield FDI. That means the investor today is willing to take a long-term call on India. Why is that happening? So where were we on 30th March? You had established yourself as one of the fastest growing large economies of the planet, right?
Yep.
You had established
7.3, 7.4, that one. Yeah.
And let's also look at the story of the large economy. In the past 50 months, your GDP today is about 3 odd trillion plus. In past 50 months, only in 50 months, I'm talking of 2015, 16 on, you've overtaken Russia, Italy, Brazil, France, UK. Russia, Italy, Brazil, France, UK, all in 50 months.
Yeah.
These were the giants of industrial growth. Please don't forget. So you move from 10 to 5, right?
Yeah.
In your size of the economy, and you're obviously, if life goes on well in the next 12, 14 months, you'll overtake Germany. You'll be number 4.
Number 3. Yeah.
So you were the largest. You were the fastest growing large economy. You are the largest consumer economy on the planet. By 2025-26, you will be 1.5 billion customers. Think about it. Give me one other national geography or a national boundary in the world where for the next 100 years, you will have 1.5 billion customers. Any.
You won't.
You yourself as the largest customer base in the world. You're also not just the largest, you'll be one of the youngest. Your average age is 29. You will be the youngest nation of the large economies all the way up to 2080. And 1 billion of that 1.5 billion will be under the age of 35. So you have a very high spend in the economy. So you had these 3 very strong pillars, which made you the strength of why the world was coming to you. And these are very strong imperatives, very compelling imperatives for an investor. Now what happened by this little virus? What this little virus, to my mind, has done, it has amplified and catalyzed few underlying trends which were already there in the system. One of them is that a lot of companies during the past 2 decades had extended their supply chains across the globe, only so that they could bring the costing down. And so what happened? Supply chains became longer and they became far from where the market is. The first thing which came up in this, that entire concept of de-risking, which you were taught in your business and you've spoken about that in achieving success business outcomes, that has come to the forefront in every management. So now again, there is a huge rush of companies, which I'm seeing in the past 120 days, wanting to come to India. They are onshoring their supply chains. They are wanting, and now what is happening, the requests are no longer that please show me the opportunity in India. The requests which are now coming into my team is please show me where is the land, I want to come to it right away. Wow. In fact, on 31st July, I'll come back to what the government has done on the 4th pillar. 31st July, we closed out that for any electronics companies, if they wanted to avail of a new incentive program which was being given by the government, they needed to put in their application by 31st July. Every major company in the world, the Pegatrons, the Windstroms, the Foxcons, they are all in that. In the last 48 hours, we had applications from every top entity in the world.
That's great news.
The Samsung factory in Noida already makes over 10 million phones a month. This is just the beginning. So they're all onshoring their supply chains. And it is not just there. It could be pharmaceutical. It could be anywhere else. So that big rush has started in a very big way. And that is what you're seeing, supply changing, moving. Now, let me give you the second thing which happened. So, the moment the virus attacked all of us, the government constituted a number of empowered groups of secretaries to take care of various aspects of it. So one could be logistics, one could be medical equipment, one could be economy, etc., etc. Our team was involved with each one of them. I remember on the medical equipment one, on 30th March, I did not have a single PPE in India. We were scurrying around the globe trying to see where we could get you PPEs, where we could get you ventilators. The problem is the entire world was closed. You had just 1 or 2 neighboring countries which were open. And it was impossible to buy from them because they were changing their prices every 3 hours. You could not even test the material before buying it. They were asking for terms of the contract, which is like full upfront payments and things like that. It was so difficult. It was such a fix. Let me tell you what happened 15th of July. Just 2 months later, we have a run rate of over 800,000 PPEs daily. India today makes PPEs not just for its own self, but we are exporting it to the world. And in fact, let me tell you, there's a high element of technology in it. When you talk of those ventilators, etc. And mind you, now we are exporting them to countries like UK and US. That means we are producing them at a lower cost, at the same quality, if not better, and we could do it so fast. Why did this happen, Alok and Sangram? It happened because of the strength of my MSMEs and my startups. I remember, go on to my website, go on to investindia.gov.in. It's, by the way, rated now as one of the best websites in the world. What you will see, and you will also get the startup, on that you will see a business immunity platform. You know what happened? The moment the lockdown started, 12 hours before that, we constituted our team. And it was a non-stop 24/7 effort of that team. We were doing everything from getting you passes, from somebody in Bangalore who lost her father in Noida, getting them state passes to get them moving, to get movement happening for goods, vehicles, companies to be opened up. But most importantly, what we were doing, we were working with startups, with my MSMEs, saying, can you, a textile company that, can you make a mask? A small startup with the technology to make a ventilator, getting them in touch with a larger automobile maker, matching them up, getting them raw material from wherever, locally or globally, getting that ventilator made. Doing a fast track of all these things across the globe. And in India, it was amazing the way my MSMEs and my startups worked. What happened? In my mind, what happened? The success of my technology IT business in the 19s and early 2000s, there's the one which took over this entire focus of the world, and they've done a brilliant job of bringing us on the world map. Today, you're known as the IT capital of the world. The other thing which happened is India's strength of frugal innovation, which is in my small MSMEs. The Indian MSMEs' ability to pivot their business models for the best utilization of capital, to be nimble. See, as I was telling you, I mean, you had towel making companies, you had plastic companies who converted themselves into making PPEs. All in such a short span of time with hardly any capital to them. So the best frugal innovation which happened in India, which came out now, and to my mind, this is what is going to lead the future of India as we walk out of this COVID. Let me give you a few statistics. And this is very important. So I told you before we went into this little virus, we were already the fastest growing large economy of the planet. Now the point is, how do we resume ourselves into that position fast enough again? We are 3 trillion today. I'm looking at a figure of about 5 trillion by 25, 26. I'm looking at 10 trillion by 2030. And that is how we are looking to move ourselves. So how do we move it? To my mind, we are at the most critical inflection point in the history of modern India today. Economically, we are around at the bottom end of that hockey stick. We are ready to take on to the vertical side of it. Now, how fast can we get out of this COVID? Let me leave a few statistics with you, and I'll tell you why I'm giving these statistics. If you look at the news, which is what we do all the time, and especially the English news, you would tend to believe that the entire country has been submerged by this virus. So, you know, we have 729 districts in India. Give and take a few. Let me give you a few statistics. Only in 11 of these 729 districts do I have over 5,000 cases. Only in 11. In 88 districts of 729, I have over 1,000 cases. In fact, in close to 200 districts, I have less than 50 cases. And in fact, in 23 districts, I have 0 cases. What has happened is that this early lockdown, which the Prime Minister announced and took a clear, unequivocal focus, we were able to contain this little virus from moving around the place. Look at it, do your calculation. You would see about 80% of the virus is limited to 6 to 8 states in India. And don't forget, I have 28 of them. That is one of the best decisions which has happened. Why am I saying that? Because our ability to pivot out of this will be much faster. And the moment we move out of it faster, we get that huge advantage of that entire fund flow and investment flow coming from the world. Now let me take you to the other point. If I just look at the figures of June and July, you know, MSME, everybody says is the worst hit. June was the worst month. July, you still opened a month. Let me give you figures of June. And remember, June, there was a moratorium that they did not have to pay back their
3 months.
installment and interest. My MSME collections in June was 65%. Even though it was a moratorium, the highest in the world, I would imagine. I would not be surprised for any other country which was so hit. It doesn't end there. Alok, my microfinance collection started June with let me give you the figure, with 60%, ended in June by 80%. Microfinance, 80%. My FMCG demand is back to pre-COVID levels.
Yeah.
I've sold small tractors and two-wheelers, again getting back into that same momentum. The green shoots are there. The results of having a leadership which is very decisive has shown how it can create an impact on good economics. The other interesting thing which has happened in India, 2 points. If you remember till late 90s, early 2000s, and I'll just spend 2 minutes on this one. India was a country high on patience, low on expectation. From 2000, that turned around. We became a country which is high on expectation and low on patience. So what is the result? Everybody is being forced to make their decisions faster and the government is being pushed to move faster, which is what Prime Minister is wanting to do. The second important thing, good economics has now become the center of good politics. These two put together have created a new movement which is now going to lead you to a new India. And you wanted to ask me about startups. Remember?
Yeah.
Do you want me to start on that for a minute?
Yes, please do that, because absolutely. Because I remember you told me, I want that a lady who is in Assam making papad, I want her to sell, to connect to the global market and make her sell there. That is how you are looking at connecting, and that is how you are looking at startups. So please, absolutely, there are a lot of startups CEOs on this call, and they'll be delighted to hear you.
So let me tell you just before the startup thing, as to what has happened during these 157 days. I told you there was 3 strong pillars. We were the fastest, largest, youngest, which were attracting capital. Add to that the 4th pillar of the Prime Minister. What he's done, he said, I want to make India the easiest place for business to do business. So you've had unprecedented reforms announced in the past 100 days, not just at the central government, but at the state government level. And each one of them are directed towards make that journey easier for the investor. What are they? 1, we had 3,400 industrial clusters. They're upgrading those clusters, making them very quick plug and play models. And as a result, you'll have that MSMEs from the world and my MSMEs coming quickly, starting their businesses. State governments have created single windows and the central government is creating one where you can come for all your approvals to one place. You will get them all there. In fact, in some state governments, they've given you a deemed timeline that if you don't hear from us in 40 days or 30 days, you mean it's taken yes. Wow. In some places, if you want to start an MSME, you require registration for the first 36 months. Just go and start. Wow. They're making it as easy. Let me give you an example. The first time in human economic history. See, one of the biggest things which this government did was digitization. For the first time, when you were talking of that lady in Assam who wanted to sell the papad. In my opinion, for the first time, India has become one because of this digitization which has happened in India. You have 1 billion people connected to a phone, you have 1 billion people connected to a bank account, you have 1 billion people with a unique identity number. Now, you know a lot of social things have happened with that. But let me tell you, give you 2 examples of how it has impacted business. For the first time in human economic history, a brand new company starting from scratch gets 100 million new customers in 180 days at the cost of acquiring a customer which is 1/5 of the global average. A brand new global company comes into India, gets 36 million new customers in 30 months at less than half of the cost of acquiring a customer, which they would do globally. So not only India had that huge potential, that digitization and the government's efforts have made it easier to access that potential. And now they are making that investor journey easy by all this. By the way, you know, we now have one of the most competitive tax rates across the world at 15% corporate tax for new investments. You know that, right? And some of my incentive schemes. So all the new schemes coming out by the government have been in huge consultation by the industry. So the industry has said that if you do the following, we will be competitive and we will make it a global hub. So, you know, starting from toys to furniture to anything, every global major is now moving into India to come and look at India and making it the manufacturing.
That's an inside news we are getting.
Take you to what I was telling you about the startups. The biggest thing for startups for me was that I told you I'm number 3, number 2, number 1. But I'll tell you the most interesting thing of my startups. You know, I told you about the 729 districts.
Yeah.
563 districts of those 729, I have a registered startup which is coming up. And I'll tell you where the new hubs are coming. If I asked you where startup is, Alok, you will clearly say Bangalore because you're from there. I would say Chandigarh because I'm from there. And somebody from Delhi will say it is Gurgaon because it is there. Let me tell you where the new hubs, where I'm getting the new interest of startups coming. From Chota Udaipur in Gujarat, from Datia in Madhya Pradesh, from Firozpur in Punjab, from Hingoli in Maharashtra, Mahe in Pondicherry, Saharsa in Bihar, Sirohi in Rajasthan.
Wow.
The small towns and cities of India are now taking and moving on with this engine of growth. The engine of growth of New India as we moved out of this virus is beyond those 11 big cities. For the first time in our history, this growth is going to be propelled bottom up. This growth is going to be now propelling bottom up from every part and nook and corner of this country. That is where this engine of growth has moved. I'll give you an example. Just 2 weeks ago, I was on one of these platforms and there were 3 of us. And you know who I had with me was a very young 18-year-old startup. His name was Rohit Kashyap. And you know where Rohit was from? Rohit is from a small place called Sitamhari in Bihar. You know what Rohit, 18-year-old Rohit does? He created a startup called Maytree School, where he has startups from around his villages and around his areas. He connects them to the entire world by getting them mentors, by getting them to the market. This is what an 18-year-old Rohit Kashyap from Sitamhari in Bihar does. The new India is going to be made by the Rohit Kashyaps of the world. And you know what is most interesting from the Rohit Kashyaps of the world? That the solutions which they are coming out with are solutions which are applicable to the 6 billion of the world's population and not just the top 500 million which come out from the fancy institutions or the big cities of the world. I'll give you a small instance. One of the top 3 PE firms of the world. I'm saying 3. It is one of those numbers because I don't have his permission to give you his name. The founder of one of them visited India and was supposed to come to my office and was given 40 minutes he had given me. He wanted to meet my startups. I had 14 startups in my conference room. He cancelled all his meetings after that, spent 4 hours, came into my room, had invested his personal money in my startups and told me, you know, Mr. Bagla, it was an eye-opener for me, this visit to India. Your startups are giving me solutions which are replicable to the entire world, which is at a frugal innovation, scalability is easy, cost is easy, to do it is easy. He gave his visiting card to my startup head and said, any which you get, please direct them to me directly. This is the new India. And this is where it is going to come in from.
You know, Deepak, sorry, go ahead, Sangram.
So I have a related question. I think you also mentioned companies like Foxconn coming to India. We also had this whole China episode happening in the past few months. And we were personally, as a matter of fact, working on a project where, we had a manufacturing project essentially, and which we had initially slated pre-COVID to be sent to China. And the moment this happened, there was a decision saying, we do not want to take this to China. And that's the time the search started, that if not China, if we have to bring this project to India, okay, what is the forum which can guide us to finding equal expertise of doing the same in India? It's in the field of electronics manufacturing.
Sangram, it's a no-brainer. Just come on to us, send me that query. You will have a dedicated relationship manager working for you. They do the entire search. By the way, I'm completely funded by the government, so there are no charges. And this is how we handhold everything. There is a lot happening here. The manufacturing strength of India is unbelievable. You know what really used to hurt me? You remember those Diwali lights we used to put, those very small little lights?
Yeah.
And for the past few years, you suddenly started buying them and they were coming from other countries. While we used to make them all in India ourselves, it was so small. Why did we do that?
Correct.
Today, I have everything I told you. You name that product. They are looking at India. They want to start doing furniture in India. They want to start doing everything. And you know, on this electronics thing, so I had one of these mobile makers and he brought 87 of his supply chain from another country where he was earlier with him. So he started in India. They started the production line and they brought, after a year and a half, they brought those 87 suppliers. Those 87 suppliers were with my team for 72 hours. We showed them 2 locations. 54 signed up before they left in those 72 hours. 18 have after that in the past 90 days have also come in and said, this is where we are looking. So what we are doing in the next few days, we'll be launching in the next couple of weeks. On the website itself, you can go onto the portal and you'll be able to see where land is available, in which state. You can click onto that and you can go and see that plot of land. And you can talk to the person. Now, just after that, we are also adding how you can apply for that land there and you'll get all approvals on the website itself.
Well, that's becoming like the US. So, you know, we had this question, how do you see India in 2030? And I know you've never spoken, but I think you've already given most of how you see India in 2030. It is a new India. It is a very forward-looking India. It is a young India. It is India firing from all cities, all villages, startups firing from every place, alternatives, world alternatives into India. It is everything. It is everything. And I don't know what I have left, but you know, I've got a series of questions from the viewers, whether there is anything on the retail side, education side, sports side. And I'm assuming you're saying yes to everything.
It is yes to everything, Alok. By the way, there was a question which I just saw. Anybody wants to connect on startups, MSMEs, business, go on to the website. And it is not one of those dead websites with a black hole after it. So if you send a query, you don't know what's going to happen. You get a dedicated relationship manager, go on to the startup one from our website. We have a separate startup website. So it's all there. I mean, connectivity is all online. You will have no issue. You can speak to them. Now, coming back to your point of 2030, you know, the former US ambassador just in his farewell speech in India said 70% of India of 2030 is yet to be constructed. It is a fact. Think about it. I am $3 trillion today. By 2030, I'm going to be at least $10 trillion. That means I'm going to add $7 trillion to the bottom line of everybody who's partnering with me in this growth. It is everywhere. Alok, I need the buttons of that nice jacket which you're wearing. I need those specs. I need those glasses. I need somebody to print that book which you've written. I need those roads to be made. I know those auto cars to be made, those two-wheelers to be made. I need my ports to be decongested. You know, we have placed aircraft orders. By the way, I have one of the fastest growing aircraft, aviation industry in the world is India. We have placed orders where for 1 week, every week for the next 20 years, a new aircraft will be delivered to us.
Wow.
And why I give you the example of aviation, because aviation is both the cause and effect of growth. You see, aviation causes growth, and because you're growing so well, aviation, I'll be doing 250 upgradation of airports in the next 5 years. I'll have 1 billion people in the aircrafts. By the way, let me give you one example, 2 examples. You see, one is how fast can a society adapt and adopt change? And one of the critical elements of that is how much is migration happening in a society. So, you know, we have a population of 1.3 billion, right? Tell me, how many people do you think traveled on my railways last year? Sangram and you, quick guess, we don't have too much time. Give me a number.
80%?
Maybe.
Sorry?
80%?
More than that, about 30, 40%.
Nikhil is saying 90 billion. Nikhil, हमारे सिर्फ 1.3 billion लोग हैं, 90 billion नहीं हो सकता, 90 billion the world में भी नहीं. What is your number, Alok?
200 million people.
200 million. What is your number, Sangram?
I said 80% of the population will travel at some point.
8 billion people traveled on my railways last year, and the 8 billion who bought a ticket not the one who sat on top and bottom.
Wow.
Now let me leave you with the last statistic, just to tell you how fast this country is changing. You all agree with me that the new oil is data, right?
Yeah.
Whichever country has more data is the country which is going to be leading the world. The most important thing in data is per capita mobile data consumption. Agreed?
Yes.
With me? See, because if I multiply it by 1.3, then the small countries will say, Acha, this was unfair. So let's come to per capita mobile data consumption. 40 months ago, my global position on usage per capita mobile data consumption was about 122 or 123. You know what was my position in this January? Actually, last November.
No.
In the world.
Not the first 10.
Alok, number 1.
Oh my goodness me.
India today consumes more per capita mobile data than China and US put together.
Wow. Wow.
Do you guys realize what you have done?
Why do you hide such stories? You should be blasting this.
The digitization of this country. This country is leapfrogging. You have no idea. Stop sitting there. We are at that inflection point. You know, whenever you are at an inflection point, you have a lot of people who sit there clicking their tongue and looking at the horror stories of the past. There are few who see the new stories coming out of the future. Come join this growth. The world is seeing it. That is why you are becoming the hottest FDI destination in the world.
Connected to that, I think, Deepak, there's an interesting question on what's going to be the impact on esports, because I think during COVID, I think there's been a spike in consumption of entertainment at home. So there are some entrepreneurs in the esports segment and they want to know, how does the future hold for esports in the country?
Partner, gaming is now the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Please remember that, and it is going to become huge. In fact, I was just talking to my sons yesterday, and what I was telling them that in my opinion, the new movies are going to be gamed. You will no longer go to a theater. You will have a movie and you will decide what is the ending, where you want to take it next. You want to be a part of it or not. In fact, many ways, if you look at it, some of the news today is that you are all a part of a huge thriller. And that is what is going to be happening. Esports is good. And it is so sad that you're going to be playing a game of soccer yourself with two people on the thing for us from the old generation, instead of seeing it really happen there on the match. But yes, entertainment is going to be one of the biggest things going forward. And the other big thing, to my mind, is work from home is going to be one of the biggest advantages for India, because what is going to happen here, and again, I go back to Sitamarhi in Bihar and Rohit, he will create a small BPO there, which will be providing service to the entire world. And because he's sitting in Sitamarhi in Bihar with his 20 friends who will be providing that service, it will be at 1/5 the cost. And for them, they will be making a higher margin without going through the problems of it. So what is this digitization done? When I said for the first time it's making India one, it has brought opportunity to everyone. You have the same opportunity as that you and me sitting in a place in India, in a bigger city, and to the access to the market and access to education.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Matter of fact, even in the micro stories, in another segment, I think we're covering micro stories, and it's so refreshing to see that the broader trends that you're talking about at a much broader macroeconomic level, even when we're speaking to small entrepreneurs, you know, I spoke to my yoga teacher and he said how his volumes have tripled, because earlier he used to serve a geography of only Bandra to Borivali. And he says, today I've got customers from Los Angeles, I've got a customer in Pakistan, I've got someone in France. And he said, COVID has done wonders.
So in fact, Deepak, we've got Kaval Singh coming next week, and we were talking to him, and he says, you know, in the last 20 years, I've tried to do exercise, yoga, I've not been able to do it. Now I have started because I have invested in this company, and this company has gone online. So and I love it. So, and that is the truth. That is the truth.
But should I tell you one more thing? Very interesting. You know, for me, when I go to this office, I was a dead man, zero energy. Obviously, Alok, you still look young. My age, towards it. You go to the office, you get energized. You know, if I asked you which are the new areas of startups coming up in India, you would tell me animation. That is right. You would tell me non-renewable energy. I would agree with you. You would tell me computer vision. I would agree with you. But you know which are the other new ones which are coming up? And these are from small towns and cities where they're getting global traction. You would never guess this. Pets and animals.
Wow.
You will never guess the other one. Photography. From small towns.
Is it?
From Firozpur with global art.
Sangram, you got competition.
Architecture and design.
Wow.
Move from global centers of the world, it is moving to my small towns. They are saying, please make us a 3D model of this architecture firms.
Wow.
Happening in a small place in Maharashtra. Events. You know these events being done? Online events, weddings and all. I have startups which are doing these full time and making huge amounts of money and getting funded. And by the way, let me tell you my last point. You know the best thing about India? My startup industry is growing as fast as I told you. You know which is the fastest growing segment in my startup industry? The women-led startups. Last year, they grew by 100%.
Wow.
As a matter of fact,
A woman in the management role of a startup, you have a 78% chance of it getting funded.
wow. Because that was my next question, because I think one of the questions that we had was that women have suddenly discovered that they have so much bandwidth. Work from home has now become standard. They said, we've always been working from home, you know, and with digitization, with this democratization of opportunity, you know, so within Invest India, are there, like you've just given one example of how there are schemes which will encourage women to basically get started off on their own. Is there more to this in terms of?
Oh, everything. There's a lot happening, Sangram. Please get onto that website. So I can't even end up. There's so much from financing to hand-holding to mentoring to getting the market to helping you, getting you established to getting you incentives. Everything is there. Why do you think in 40 months you become number 3, number 2, number 1?
I think that answers a lot of questions, because I'm seeing a lot of questions also coming up saying, can we get funding? Can we get, I think the simple answer is get onto the website. Most of the questions seem to be there, right?
Drop in a message. You will have somebody with you, hand holding you. The moment you drop in that message, just go through that website. You will get all help. I'm sorry, I'm not just sounding like one of those companies that come on my website and you'll get an automated recording. No. It actually is a live website, and this, because there is so much, I can't even answer it, and I know we've run out of time. Sorry, Sangram.
So, you know, you did say government is a buy-side organization, and creating a successful sell-side organization is a DNA change, right? I now know how it is happening. With you sitting on the other side, I know, you know, why this DNA change is happening. And you're right, we are running out of time. Sangram, do you want to ask any last questions?
There's one last question that was interesting actually, and it came from a lady who runs a very credible NGO. And this lady is in the business of, rather not in the business, but she's in her day job is basically educating people who are school dropouts and giving them vocational jobs, you know.
Blue-collar jobs.
The question was that post-COVID, where is the demand for blue-collar workers going to come? Because she says, I'm going to revise my programs to actually cater to that demand.
It is so smart. You know, as you speak, in fact, we are in this exercise. So one of the things which the government does, by the way, for all investors, when they come in, they ask them, what is the skill you require? And the government trains them on their cost and then gives them those skilled people. So what is now happening with all these new sectors coming in, there's going to be a lot of skill development which is required. We are now creating, again, because we work everything transparent and digital, we are creating it on the portal. By the way, if you go to the NSDC portal, the National Skill Development Corporation portal, they've already picked up the new skill requirements which are there. And they are funding a lot of private entities which are in the skill development program. So that is what NSDC does also. And we are also creating this portal. So ours is going to be driven from the demand side. His is going to be driven from the supply side. We are going to be matching it both together. So for me, it will be companies coming in and they will see that, and we are going to put it all on the portal. So you will see where the new requirements of skills are.
I only have one comment. It's not really a question, but it's one comment. And it was so refreshing, this whole conversation, that one often wonders, because even I would classify myself as MSME, and
yeah,
one discussion that is there amongst all MSMEs is, what is the government doing? You know, and somewhere I think there needs to be a communication outreach in terms of, because this discussion was so refreshing, but a lot of people don't seem to know. A lot of people don't seem to have gone to the site. They don't know there are so many schemes available. Maybe there should be a concerted effort to have a communication push to maybe ads, maybe short films, and some kind of awareness, beyond, the short reach of this particular webinar, that this is actually what is being done for MSMEs. And honestly, we don't want SOPs. We don't want money from the government. All that we're looking for is support. All that we're looking for is, help in various ways. And as you rightly said, if without any of the support that first world economies had, if MSMEs have been able to pay 65% of their dues in the moratorium period, that's what shows the spirit of MSMEs, right? So,
and microfinance, Sangram, 90%.
Exactly. So, which is where I would say that, a communication effort, a proactive communication effort, saying that this is what the government is doing, that will very much go a long way in terms of, rallying around these MSMEs. So, with
very
that, I run out of time, but sorry, you were saying something.
I said, no, very valid point. Completely taken.
So I think we've almost run out of time. I think to summarize, it was indeed very refreshing. It was very, very refreshing. Honestly, we didn't need to ask you questions at all because you were answering them before we could even ask you. So you made it so smooth and so flowing. You almost preempted all the questions that we had. Most of the questions even that have been asked by the audiences seem to have been covered by what you said. What I found very refreshing is what you said about why we should be optimistic about COVID. Is that our affected cities, there is no overlap between the cities that are affected and the cities from where growth is coming. And that is so refreshing because the engines of growth are coming from another part of the country, whereas those that have been affected by COVID is another part of the country. And that is what gives hope, saying that India will indeed recover. Also stories about MSMEs, resurgent MSMEs paying 65% of their dues, micro organizations paying 90% of their dues. That basically shows the spirit of frugal innovation, the spirit of MSMEs in India. And I think I would appeal to all entrepreneurs on this particular chat to go to the site. I myself want to do that because I have that query about moving the Chinese manufacturing down to India. But yes, I think indeed very, very enlightening. Alok, you want to add something to this?
No, so I don't know. I think this has been double happiness for me. One, having Deepak on this show. Two, having met him after such a long while. And I'm so proud, Deepak, whatever you've done. I mean, other than being so profound, inspiring, and even human in the middle. All I want to do is to tell you, I want to give you a big hug, and please, on my behalf, my two nephews, please give them a hug and just let them know that Alok remembered them from my side. We're very proud of you, Deepak, and we will stay in touch. And I'm sure a lot of people will reach out to you. I hope they found it useful. But any last, anything last from your side, Deepak?
Let's just make it happen, guys. Really.
Absolutely.
And we can.
Absolutely.
Life is too short. Let's just make it. Everything is right there. You can make this new country.
Absolutely. Someone said, let's get the chorus on. And I think you're saying the same. Let's get the chorus on.
Yes.
Actually, there's this famous statement by Winston Churchill which says, don't let a good crisis go to waste.
That's right.
Listening to everything that you've said as to how COVID is affected, I would genuinely say that all entrepreneurs, all of us in the MSME board, we should say, this is a crisis. Let's look on the bright side of it. And let's take some inspiration from this talk. And let's go with Deepak's passion of changing India, and let's be a part of that change. Thank you so much, Deepak, for being on the show. And it was indeed lovely listening to every single piece of advice from you. The website details we will put up on our Facebook page. Anyone who wants to have their queries answered can go to the Invest India website. I'll be the first to do so. And we can take Deepak on his word and basically ask for handholding and support that we want. Yes.
Thank you. That is it, folks. Thank you, Deepak, again. And to our viewers, thank you very much for joining us and giving this 1 hour on Saturday evening. We will bring these kinds of engaging conversations as we go forward. Next Saturday, as we will have Kaval Singh, who's the managing partner of Fireside Ventures. Just to let you know, he has been shortlisted as one of the 4 investors with the Midas Touch. So you will see someone who believes in a different maxim of investment. He believes in unit economics. He believes in businesses giving net profits, not only growth alone, and he helps businesses do it.
I think Alok must add that he's the investing force behind brands like Paperboat, behind brands like Boat, who makes
ID,
behind ID, the Atta company,
Italy, yes.
Bombay Shaving Company,
Licious,
Licious.
a lot of them.
Giving us examples over examples of how companies are innovating in COVID. He'll also be talking about a lot of opportunities that COVID has thrown up for entrepreneurs to pick up. So yes, a lot lined up. Recorded version of this particular session will be up on the Guts Glory Story page. And we will make announcements about Kamal's session and the forthcoming sessions as well. With that, thank you very much for being with us. And we shall see you same time, 6 o'clock, on yet another session of Guts Glory Story. Bye and adieu from all of us.
Have a great weekend, guys. Thank you very much. Take care.